Hello everyone and warm welcome to the final seminar of SNOWSCAPE. I'm truly excited to welcome you here also live in Rovaniemi as well as all of you online. My name is Heidi Kalmari. I'm the chair of the board for Protect Our Winters Finland and happy to also welcome all the other POW activists as well as all of our partners and companions who have been involved in this great project. Behind here, I will show you now one of the ways how we make an impact. It's our climate manifesto on the slopes. So to a little bit talk more about what is Protect Our Winters Finland, it's a climate activism organization, work in international way. We have a chapter in Finland, but it's an international organization operating already almost in 15 different countries. Here in Finland, we are proud to be approaching 10 years of activity next year. Our mission in Protect Our Winters is to engage the winter sports and outdoor communities in meaningful climate action, organize impactful campaigns and events, and influence decision makers and companies both nationally and internationally. More about our work we will tell along the way throughout this seminar as we go through the SNOWSCAPE project. So I'm happy to welcome now our first, let's go through first our agenda a little bit more. So the welcoming words are now here, and then after my welcome speech, I will let Niklas Kaskala, our founder of Protect Our Winters Finland, to have a small speech about the urgency of carbon handprint work in sports. After that, we will hear more insights from the SNOWSCAPE project from our experts, and then we will have a short break, and afterwards we will have a really inspiring co-creation discussion where we will explore the possibilities and barriers in expanding the carbon handprint of snow sports truly. So welcome aboard, hope you enjoy, and now I will let Niklas Kaskala join in. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Heidi. I guess my microphone is working. Yes, all right. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome on my behalf as well to this webinar and seminar. My name is Niklas Kaskala. I'm a long-term climate activist, and I was one of the founders of Protect Our Winters Finland, or the Finnish chapter, exactly almost 10 years ago. So this year we're celebrating our 10th anniversary here in Finland. And today I'm going to talk a bit about how the urgency of the carbon handprint work in sports. So let's get moving on that. Before we go into the world of sports, I want to set the scene where we are currently in the climate crisis. And there's one metric that tells, in my opinion, explains where we are at the moment the best. It's the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. When I was born, it was 337 parts per million. I actually have it tattooed on my arm so that I always remember where I started my journey on this planet, at 337 parts per million of carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. That doesn't really say anything to anyone if you just say it just like that. However, if you consider what's happened since I was born in 1979 and where we are today, we're today at 422 ppm or parts per million. Even the increase might not say much to anyone, but if we reflect on what would be a safe level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, then things start to get even a bit scary. Safe level of carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere would be 350 parts per million. So being at 422 today means that we've gone way above or way beyond that safe limit. And actually we surpassed that safe limit back in 1987 already. So pretty much most of my lifetime we've already crossed a barrier that we shouldn't cross. And I think this really shows the urgency of climate action. It also shows that even if we were to limit emissions or even stop emitting carbon dioxide in some miraculous way overnight globally, we would still have a climate crisis. We still have too much CO2 in the atmosphere. You can think about it like if you'd imagine a bathtub and water in the bathtub, and you have the tap on and the water's running. The bathtub symbolizes our atmosphere, and the water this level of CO2. We've had the tap on for centuries, for decades, and what has happened is that the water level is already at a level where it's overflowing, causing all kinds of damage. And our solution to this as humanity has been to turn the tap, just adjust it a bit, not even turn it off, but just adjust it a bit. But that doesn't solve the problem if the water is already overflowing the borders of the bathtub. So what we need to do is really turn the tap off completely, but even that's not enough. The water would still remain at dangerous levels. We need to somehow remove water from the tub, so take out the plug and drain out the excess water. Actually, the same thing with the atmosphere. We need to come up with solutions to stop all CO2 emissions or man-caused or man-made emissions, but that's still not enough. We actually need to remove large amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So I'm telling this to set the scene and to emphasize the urgency of climate action and emphasize that no one can be passive in such a situation. But let's go more into the realm of snow sports. And let's start with how snow sports is already being affected by the climate crisis. I think this is a super powerful image. Sorry, I'm not clicking I'm clicking on my computer, but not on, okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Remind me if I forget. So this is a really powerful image. If you don't know what's going on here, this is a snow cannon or a snow making machine putting out a wildfire in the Western Canada, I think, or was it Western United States? A few years back. We've recently seen what's been going on in Los Angeles in the wildfires over there. Wildfires have always been around forever, but still, I think this has some symbolism that we need to use the tools that we have in order to have snow sports today, because we need artificial snow or snowmaking in order to be able to do snow sports today, but we actually have to use them already to put out wildfires. And I think that says a lot. There's a lot of symbolism in this picture. But more concretely, switching both now, when it comes to everybody who does snow sports has probably seen the impacts of climate change already. And that's why, for example, Protect Our Winters exists. A lot of snow sports enthusiasts have joined the organization because they've seen the impacts of the climate crisis on snow sports. But if we look at what's ahead of us, if we don't drastically reduce emissions, if we don't tackle global warming, we'll only have about 10 countries left in the world where we can have Winter Olympics in just a few decades' time, in the 2040s. If we look at the past few Olympics, most of the snow was already produced artificially. Obviously, these were places where it doesn't snow much anyway, but still, I think there's that shows where we are. That this is no more like a natural sport, but already we need to rely on artificial snowmaking. Lillehammer, Oslo, Vancouver, Garmisch-Partenkirchen, famous winter sports destinations and winter sports locations will not be able to host Winter Olympics in the coming decades. So you could say that this poses the climate crisis poses an existential threat to the future of snow sports. At the same time, snow sports, or the ski industry, if you want to call it that, thank you, keep reminding me, plays a pretty vital role here in Europe for the European economy, for our tourism, and also obviously all the enthusiasts who love to do winter sports. 5 million people practice winter sports regularly. In Finland, a country that's known for its winters, I think we have over 1 million people who actively participate or do winter sports. So that's about 1/5 of the population. I don't have to go through all these numbers, but I just want to show these in order to make you understand how big of an industry this is and what the impact on the industry would be, or the impact on Europe, our beloved hobbies, but also our economy would be if we were to lose the possibility of practicing winter sports. Now, both. But what can we do as a snow sports community? How can we understand the severity of the climate crisis? What is our role in tackling it? And can we justify winter sports in an era of global warming? I think we need to realize that in winter sports is a very elitist thing to do. And I think from that, and it causes a lot of emissions as well. Traveling to destinations, all the equipment that's needed, clearing out forests for slopes and ski tracks, etc. It's not exactly the most sustainable thing to do. So can we justify such a thing in an era of global warming? I think that's a really relevant question. What is the social justification for winter sports in the era of the climate crisis? This has nothing to do, the next slide, has nothing to do with winter sports, but I want to show what we have ahead of us if we don't tackle the climate crisis. And from this, I think we need to understand our role as practitioners, as enthusiasts of a pretty small community and a very elitist community in many ways. These are so-called tipping points that will take place if we don't tackle global warming. So these are tipping points, are things that put into motion even further global warming, even further climate crisis, and that are in many cases sort of very difficult to stop once we put them into motion. We've all probably read and heard that we've already crossed the 1.5 degree target from the Paris Agreement, at least temporarily in recent years, and we're soon to cross it, perhaps permanently. And that will already put into motion some tipping points. And as you can see, that some of these tipping points that already start happening once we reach 1.5, 2 degrees and even beyond, they're not just going to impact the climate, but they're going to impact a lot of local communities around the world, and many of them have nothing to do with the world of winter sports. The reason I want to show this is going back to the fact that we are very privileged. Us winter sports enthusiasts are part of the most privileged people in the world, I would say. And our sports at the moment, the way we practice them, cause emissions. Can we justify them in a world where we are coming close to these tipping points that will definitely accelerate the climate crisis even more? I'll come back to can we do something about this, but I think I want to reflect on the fact that passivity or being passive in the face of this crisis is no longer enough. And being passive as a very privileged person or a very privileged community is not actually, it's a choice. It's an active choice in a way. Being passive is an active choice. There's a bit of a contradiction there. And we no longer have that luxury. So, I think I already emphasized the role of winter sports from an economic point of view, but also there's a social aspect to it that I want to highlight as well. It's a part of, at least here in Finland, it's pretty much a part of our lifestyle as well, I would say, for many people. Also in many mountainous communities across Europe. Not everywhere, but in many places around Europe. It's about culture, it's about well-being, it's about our history, it's about how our kids play outside, for example. It brings joy, community. And this can be something I think that we can use in order to maximize or realize our actual potential to do something about the climate crisis. Using that, what I just meant, the joy, the passion we have for winter sports, the fact that it's part of our culture, our history, can actually be something that we turn into action, that we get strength from, and we build a stronger, a stronger case for our action. But our action cannot be, I think, in this moment of the climate crisis, can no longer be sort of incremental change. It can no longer focus on incremental emission reductions. Or we have to reduce the emissions of our snow sports community. We need to think about the way we travel to our snow sports destinations. We need to think about the infrastructure we build. We need to think about the energy we use, etc., the food we eat, and all sorts of things. But still, if you still remember that metaphor about the bathtub, it's no longer enough to turn the tap on incrementally, tap off incrementally. We need to cause bigger change. And I often talk about this. Another sort of metaphor is, if you're faced with a situation like here, where you have a park that's dirty, is your solution to cleaning the park to maybe throw less trash into that park? Of course, that Okay, it seems we had some technical problems with the internet connection here in the auditorium. So, but I'm not quite sure what we're cut off. But I'll just continue, I think. So, the standard approach to cleaning this park would be to start throwing incrementally less trash into the park. But obviously, we realize that that's not enough. The same thing with the snow sports community. Obviously, if we want to clean this park, we need to stop throwing any trash into it, and we need to clean up after ourselves, but also start encouraging others to do the same, so that we can keep a clean park. And I think here is where we start talking about the difference between footprint and handprint. So we often talk about our climate footprint, how we need to reduce our climate footprint. So that's more about like being less bad, right? Causing less harm. It's not about challenging the fundamental ways of working or the fundamental business models that you operate around. It's about being less bad. And sustainability is something that reaches some kind of equilibrium between being good and bad, so that you're in a way not causing any harm to the world. And obviously that's a good target. If we reach, like for example in climate terms, if we reach net zero, where we're no longer adding carbon dioxide, the levels or increasing the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, that's obviously a great target to set. But given the fact that we already have so much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and we have this carbon debt that we need to repay, we need to do even more. And that's when we start thinking about our handprint, doing more good. And that's where I think the impact of the snow sports community comes into play. So obviously, within snow sports, we need to be less bad. We need to reduce our emissions. But that won't change the world. We are still a pretty small community. And even if we reach some sort of sustainability, that still won't stop climate change or climate crisis. But what if we think about how we can be more good, how we can do more good, how we can increase our positive impact beyond our own community, how we can inspire more positive change. I think that's the way we make a mark on this world. This is a famous meme that many of you perhaps have seen, but I found a new version of it. Obviously, when we ask people who wants to tackle climate change, everybody's yes, I'm in. Then who wants to change their own habits or like their own ways of working? Yeah, things get a bit quiet. And who wants to lead the change? People start really leaving the room. But I think the winter sports community has maybe started to realize that we need change. It's slow. Some of the organizations representing winter sports are still having a blindfold on and not understanding the threat that the climate crisis poses on the whole future of winter sports. But there's Protect Our Winters, I think, is a good example of the community awakening to the severity of the situation. But our spot at the winter sports community is in the bottom of this meme, where we start leading the change and inspiring others to act as well. And that's where the biggest impact lies, I think. But to be credible, we need to walk the talk as well. It's no longer enough to say that, hey, we're acting as an inspiration to the world if we at the same time don't think about our own footprint. So I'll return to the previous slide quickly and say that we need all of these steps. But I think my main message today is that it's no longer enough to be less bad. It's time to be more good. We'll go into what this handprint thinking means for the winter sports community in more detail in some of the coming presentations. I'm probably not the first one to have used this quote, but I think I use it quite often. We often think about climate action as something that we do in order to reach our own goals, for example, of reducing our personal impact on the climate, in terms of reducing our organizational impact on the climate, in terms of reducing our family's impact on the climate, etc. That's good. But at the same time, I think we need to realize that whatever we do is always a social interaction with others. We're not isolated from each other. We live in a world where we look at what others are doing, copy them, get inspiration from them, mimic them, etc. So I think whatever we do, we always need to think about the way that inspires others to act as well, and how does that motivate others to act. I'm sorry. You forgot to remind me of the changing the slides. This is difficult because I'm using my own computer and the other one is up there. Anyway, so here's the quote I was mentioning. And I think I want to stop here and hope this sort of sets the scene for the discussions that we have ahead of us. How does the winter sports community act in a way that gets others to act too? And maybe how do we find our role in this world where we're facing an existential threat to our beloved sports and lifestyles? How do we find a way to increase our carbon handprint? All right, I'll end here, but if we have any questions or any comments, I'm happy to answer before we move on in the program.
Any comments online?
All right.
All right. Thank you, Niklas. Thank you for the inspiring and very important starting speech for this day's webinar. One question came into my mind. We are now recognizing the potential in winter sports for doing good and doing really the impact. How much of that potential do you think is already in use? can we estimate that? That's one of the questions that we will explore today more. But do you have a kind of like hunch on that?
I would say that not much yet.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more to be done.
Mm.
Within Protect Our Winters, I think we have very good examples of
Mm.
athletes and sports associations,
Mm.
etc., other actors, ski resorts, trying to already take their role in the handprint work.
Yeah.
But I think there's still a lot more to be done. And I think the SNOWSCAPE project and introducing the concept of a handprint, I think will do a lot more to maybe encourage others to also be more vocal. I think there's a bit of some hesitation to be vocal and do the handprint work if you haven't taken care of your footprint first. But I think my message is that we can do both at the same time. And it's okay to be imperfect as long as you're sort of moving in the right direction.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. And we will definitely now hear how's our slides. We're missing slides. Yes, we will continue exploring on this question and the potential. And that was actually really what our project SNOWSCAPE has been about, to really, discover the potential, discover the will of doing this good and increasing the handprint. So now we will hear insights from the SNOWSCAPE project that has been going on now for 1.5 years. And I want to welcome warmly Sini Puu, our project manager at Protect Our Winters Finland, also a paraskier. And then also Jonne Silonsaari, Doctor of Sports Sciences, also a POW activist in our POW Finland board member. Jonne will be joining online from Amsterdam, I presume, and then Sini is here in Rovaniemi. So I will give floor now to Sini and Jonne. Jonne, can you hear us? Are you online?
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Am I good?
Just waiting if we have a connection to Jonne. Jonne, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you guys hear
Jonne
me?
is online. Okay, and then now Sini. Okay, the floor is yours.
Great. I'm good. Am I good to go, guys? Am I good to go?
Yep.
Sure, great. Yeah, so my name is Jon, and I'm not, first of all, here not to take credit for the project. That's for other people to do, but I had the privilege to be able to develop some of the initial ideas for the Snowscape and pitch the idea to the EU and use some of the methodological work that I've done elsewhere. So my entry point to these issues is that I've worked a number of years in the sports movement, in sports organizations, and then in the academic realm, developed action research methods, which we applied a little bit in the project. The initial idea of the project was, or the goal of the project was to increase the carbon handprint. We'll get to that very thoroughly today, I believe, to the concept. So to increase the carbon handprint of the European snow sports movement and enable European snow sports to act as a strong role model in the change of sustainability. So if you break that down, I think the key things, apart from the carbon handprint concept, is the snow sports movement. So what does that mean? Who is the movement? What is it doing? How does it reproduce itself? How does it mobilize itself? How is it coordinated? So we sort of made a distinction between different stakeholders that might have sort of differing entry points to the concept of carbon handprint in their work or in their respective roles as parts of the movement. So we were working with event organizers, sports governing bodies, athletes. You can also think of volunteers working in sports clubs, and of course professionals working in sports clubs, etc., etc. Everyday skiers, everyday mountain enthusiasts, etc., etc. So, but the point is that we want to, demarcate, or wanted to demarcate in the project. There's different interests that people have, and of course there is also some conflicting interests in carbon handprint work of these actors, and sort of the co-creation methodology that we applied is that we organized a set of co-creative workshops for these different stakeholders, and the idea there was to create a consensus about ideas, experiences, aspirations regarding the concept of carbon handprint, and more broadly ideas around the role of the winter sports movement in the sustainability transition, as very well pitched by Nicholas there just before before this presentation. And based on that consensus and based on those ideas and sort of problematizations, we designed a set of experiments, and this is sort of course very interesting how experiments are used and conceptualized in first of all in the world of sports, or applied in the sports movement, but also more broadly in the sustainability transitions. There's a lot of discussion about why we need to use experiments in this kind of projects. And sort of the narrow one-dimensional idea is that we get to experiment if something works. So if let's say sustainable mobility practices work for the snow sports community, and the end result of that kind of an experiment is yes or no. Yes, it did work, or no, it didn't work. But the more, let's say, pluriversal or broader idea about experimenting is that of social learning. So how can the experiments transform? Wow, something is happening on my screen now. Can you guys see me?
We can hear you. You can go.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So how are we using experiments to spark new narratives, new experiences about what is it to do snow sports, what is it to organize competitions, what is it to be part of the movement? And this was our approach. This is what we wanted to develop in that sort of second cycle, second stage of the project. So first discussing these issues with the different stakeholders, and then creating experiments where for a limited amount of people or a clearly defined group, we are creating new experiences of their sort of organizational or social practices, or practices in their everyday life. And in the third stage, it's obviously diffusing these experiences and insights to the wider audience. And in the project, we had this Raise Your Handprint campaign to do that, and now we are approaching, and I think in the process of evaluation of the project results, where this seminar is obviously an important event. Can you move on to the next slide? So yeah, just one back. Yes, thanks. So the concept itself became quite a prominent thing in the project, which was sort of exciting, that actually it's through concepts that we adopt new practices, and it's through concepts that that we come by transformation. And yeah, in the beginning of the project, this is sort of the framework that we had. So on the right there, carbon footprint, and on the left, the carbon handprint, and sort of just like to summarize some of the basic differences between these concepts is that the carbon footprint obviously can only ever be reduced to zero. Your organization or your ski enthusiasm can only ever have zero carbon footprint in the idealized situation. But on the other hand, the carbon handprint can endlessly be increased. And as put by Niklas in his last slide, it's really about acting, or like those actions that make other people act too, that can increase your carbon handprint. Secondly, the carbon footprint is obviously, condensed, or like happens only inside of the communities or the sports movement. It's not spilling over or flooding over in a positive sense to other stakeholders around the movement. But the handprint, on the other hand, can support sustainability transition inside and outside of the sports. So yeah, there's in sports sociology, there's the very basic tenet of understanding the sports movement is that we need to appreciate sports as a part of the societal landscape, not as an island where it has its own rules and regulations and own sort of natural laws that determine how sports works. It's always a reflection of the surrounding society, and it of course always reflects its values backed something internal, some of its internal values back to the society around it. So this is a key for the carbon handprint thinking in the snow sports movement. And thirdly, the carbon footprint only concerns a limited amount of processes and approaches, whilst the handprint uses the positive leverage of sports for vital societal change. So very much that I described on this regarding the sports being always part of the wider societal landscape. So this is the thinking behind the project, and especially the concept of carbon handprint. And if you click on one slide, this is the definition, sort of the two-sided definition that we came up in the project, that I think will also be contemplated and elaborated further on today. So carbon handprint in sports means creating a positive climate impact by inspiring, leading by example, and encouraging others to act sustainably. But on the other hand, it can also include advocating for decision makers to create frameworks that make it easier for everyone to reduce their carbon footprint, multiplying our collective positive impact. So this positive spillover effect to the society around it. But in a nutshell, that's the sort of the rationality of the project. And now I would like to hand over to Sini to get a bit more detail, to explain a bit more thoroughly what we've been actually doing in the project, and how this sort of methodological conceptual framework was operationalized.
Thank you, Jonne. And welcome to everyone also from my part. My name is Sinipu, and I've been the project manager for Project SNOWSCAPE throughout the whole project. Here you can see a small timeline of our project. So we started on August 2023, and we've been now wrapping up the project at the end of January 2025. Here on the top left, you can see our project team. Nora is also here today, and then we have Sara joining our panel today. And during the project, as Jonna explained, we have hosted workshops. You can see a picture also on the top row. We have done pilots. So we have done multiple pilots. We have had a pilot here in Rovaniemi, for example. We organized biking to skiing competition pilot with Ounasvaran hiihtoseura. Then we have also had a pilot with Finnish Snowboarding Association. We had a pilot where we tested out how can we create sustainable partnerships. We've had event pilot in sand skiing world championships in Kalajoki, for example. So we've had a lot of different, on the top right, bottom right, you can also see our pilot where we hosted athletes as influencers workshops for young athletes as well. So we kind of tried different aspects for all the stakeholder groups. And now we're at the point where we are handing out those tools we created when we distinguished what kind of challenges there are on the field that we wanted to answer with this project. And of course, the work continues after, but right now we are going to go through our results. What did we learn during this 18-month journey? And maybe kind of talk a little bit about how can one person or how can an organization do most in broadening their carbon handprint further. So, how to increase carbon handprint? Who is responsible for the change? These are the two questions we are going to talk mostly about today. What is the main thing we notice that there's a lot of people in the field who want to do more. And a lot of people believe, this is from our survey, 92.8% believed snow sports is not using their full potential in increasing their carbon handprint. So there's a lot of will to do more, but people are a little bit lost on what to do. And with this project, we tried to find concrete ways to show them what to do, give them tools to help with the transition, but mostly just to get people talking, just to realize that their impact is actually a lot larger than they might initially think. What we want to also say that you aren't responsible for the climate crisis alone. It's not only your responsibility, but you can be part of the solution. Anybody can be part of the solution, and everybody should be, as Niklas said before, that we can't no longer escape our responsibility, but we need to embrace it and do our best. We are going to dive into the topic through Nova. Nova wants to say hi to all of you. Even though Nova is an individual in this, we want to embrace that, and we want to make sure that everybody understands that we don't think it's on the hands of an individual, but we also want to tell a story that shows what it could be, what are the possibilities if there's no obstacles that might be relevant today. So what I would want you to do during this is also to think about the places where you could help Nova. In your current position, in your current role, what are the places where if you would see Nova in any of her ages when she's growing up with us, what are the places you can be there to support her and you can be there to even push her further? So that's your task for Nova's story. So let's get going. Let's start with Nova's first time trying out snow sports. Nova is 7 years old. Nova has always been a curious child and has already learned about the impact of her actions to have on her surrounding world and especially on winters. Today is Nova's first time trying snow sports. They suggested to their parents that instead of booking a holiday abroad, they could cycle to a nearby facility. They had seen their local snow sport hero take the bike every day and figured it would be a great idea to try that. This way they could also get a season pass instead of just a few days on a larger slope. After all, they are small, and their friends go there too. During the day, Nova falls and gets up again, growing a lasting bond with the sports with each tumble on the snow. A spark is ignited. After a few visits, Nova starts cycling to the slopes with her 3 friends. We begin with the role of the individual. In this first time Nova goes, she kind of tests out what she can do. She talks to her parents. This is anybody. She's not exactly a snow sport athlete yet. She's just a small person wanting to do something that's close to her heart, maybe have a new hobby, but she already thinks about her actions and she already tries to make, I don't think at this point she even realizes she's making the change, but she sees her idols doing stuff. She wants to maybe replicate those, and as Niklas said before, we all show example even if we don't realize it. So when I was a small girl, I'm a cross-country skier, I do Paralympic sports. When I was a small girl, I was looking at my idols. What are they doing? Today, we can see those idols in social media every day. We can see their everyday actions. So Nova is already observing what people around her are doing. And what we want to take from here is small acts when multiplied by millions of people can transform the world. And this is where everybody can take place. For anyone, we created a carbon handprint quiz to kind of help learn about the carbon handprint methodology, what it means, what it actually means in snow sport context, but in everybody's life, and why it's important. So if you want to kind of play around with the concept, learn a little bit more, we encourage you to take the quiz, maybe not now, but after this, just to learn and make sure that you actually understand what we mean by carbon handprint. Let's go to the next section of Nova's life. Nova enrolls in a snow sport club. When Nova turns 9, they enroll in a local snowboarding club. As usual, they arrive at the first practice by bike, sparking discussions among their teammates. Soon, more club members start biking. It's a great warm-up after all. Nova's club is aware of the impact of climate change on their sports and want to ensure they can continue using their local slope for years to come. Inspired by Noah's example, their coach starts exploring more sustainable practices and presents their findings to the board. Soon the club introduces climate-friendly measures, including sustainable travel to competitions and camps, and making it fun and communal at the same time. In some cases, the club is surprised to learn that these options are also cost-effective. They offer vegetarian snacks and meals and foster a culture of being mindful with gear. The club fosters a culture of learning and teaching, ensuring everyone is part of their sustainability mission. These efforts become a point of pride, and they also attract more and more kids to join. Other clubs start to pick up on their practices as the club is happy to share their learning. At this point, we want to highlight what are the sports club's carbon handprint opportunities. At this point, many of us join a sport club when we are under 10 years old. We might even be 5 years old. And a club is somewhere where you go and you meet your friends. It's a lot more than sports. So I think it's also in the responsibility of the club to take their surroundings as a responsibility as well. Here we have a few things we've noticed that sports clubs can use to increase their carbon handprint. First, lead by example. When we talked about people, especially in the clubs, we kind of faced some resistance and thinking that this is not the job of the sport club. But we disagree. Sports clubs are one of the biggest movers of people in Europe. A lot of people that never get to the competitive stage also. We also have a lot of responsibility in the sports club to show how things can be made different. Because in some families, for example, the thinking is not there, but sports clubs can foster a culture where change is embraced. And as we know, sports clubs, it happens every week. So it's not something you don't go to camps every week, you don't go to competitions every week. But in sports club, you come every week, maybe many times a week, so there's a lot of touch points where you can actually make a change. And this comes to prioritizing supportive community. What would have happened if Nova would have biked in the first practice and everybody would have laughed at her? Like, why are you biking? Why don't you take a car? Do you think that would have encouraged Nova to act and come again with a bike? But instead, the club decided to take action. They said, okay, this is actually a good idea. This is very supportive for the whole, maybe everybody should bike. And that's how we grow a supportive community. We need to be open to new ideas. We need to be welcoming and listen to from Nova, who is 9 years old, to the oldest board member, everybody can have good ideas, but make sure that you don't diminish those ideas, because they can actually make a great difference. And thirdly, when we talk about partnerships, Sports Club also have a responsibility in partnerships, especially if you hold events or anything like that. Make sure your partnerships are sustainable and they are responsible, and also advocate for climate-friendly operations. We have created a tool. We have a guide for sports clubs to increase in their handprint. It's found on the SNOWSCAPE Project Winter SNOWSCAPE page. You can also access it with a QR code. It's in English and Finnish, where all clubs can find concrete examples on how to increase their carbon handprints. But this is what we found to be the top things in our discussions and in the survey regarding sports clubs. Next part, Nova starts competing. Nova quickly progresses as an athlete, and they start gaining followers on social media. By the time they are 16, they compete in their first national championships, and she wins. After the competition, they receive their first media inquiries. In interviews, Nova voices her concern about climate change, noting that the competition was almost cancelled due to poor conditions. Their message reaches 2,100 viewers, and Nova documents their journey home via public transport, an idea suggested by the event organizers, sharing it with her followers, 8,000 of whom decide to try similar methods. During the event, Nova enjoys a delicious vegan meal provided by the organizers and shares her recipe with the audience, inspiring others to give it a try. Even organizers have a lot of opportunities to increase carbon handprint of athletes that take part, of volunteers that take part, of the public that comes to visit. There's a lot of touch points they can have. And as we can see here, a lot of the actions you make are simultaneously carbon footprint actions, like organizing public transport. But when the same person does it again, so they maybe get a very positive experience from taking the train or the bus, that's where the event's carbon handprints start to grow. So what we distinguish for the event organizers: bring sustainability to the core of the event. Make it a theme, make it something that is visible. We have great examples in here. For example, Jukola last year, they made a guide for other events. Offer good experiences of sustainable actions, make it maybe cheaper, maybe have a reward. In here in Rovaniemi, for example, in our pilot, we offered a waffle for everybody who joined, which was actually a great success. We had one smaller individual coming to, the whole other family came by car, but they wanted to come by bike because they got a waffle as a prize. So even small rewards can be the action that gets people going. And it doesn't have to be anything great like for us. But with the waffle, we actually increased the amounts of bikes we had on our park from 3 to over 30, even though the weather was snowing. I think we got like 15 to 20 centimeters new snow that day. People still decided to come by bike. Maybe it was the waffle, maybe it was the idea, but they got there. So there's a lot of ways you can reward people to take the first step, because there's a lot of also psychological barriers to trying new things with people. So maybe if you can give like a small incentive to do something new, that might be the breaking point, that they actually try it and it becomes a habit. And also, it's not only your own event. But when you're organizing an event, you have to realize that other events are also looking at what you're doing, and you can also share what you learned. So if you have a successful, hey, we gave a waffle for people who came by bike, you should try this too, to the next one. Or if you have materials, can the next event reuse those materials? So any idea you have, make sure you share it to other events, for example. That is very important. For events, we have a tool in evaluating sponsors or partner sustainability. Right now we have it in Finnish. We will also have it in English next week, where you can see if you have an event sponsor, what are their kind of sustainability level, what things you should also take part. So it also kind of teaches you to find ways to evaluate partner sustainability. A little breather here. Okay. Then, Nova's first championships win. After the championships win, Nova begins competing internationally, and the effects of climate change on snow sports start to become more and more clear. Nova's social media presence continues to grow, providing also an opportunity to share deeper insights and concerns about climate change to a bigger audience. Nova receives a lot of partnerships offers, but chooses to decline offers from brands that do not feel right. Nova partners with companies on the fields of circular economy, plant-based foods, and sustainable travel. Together with partners and their network, Nova creates and participates in impactful campaigns aimed at influencing climate policies and systemic change, leading by example in both lifestyle and advocacy. While occasionally air travel is unavoidable for competitions, Nova ensures to opt for the most sustainable alternatives. Nova collaborates with sports governing body to introduce innovative, value-driven approaches and sustainable partnerships criteria. Other national team athletes and other national teams follow, and soon these methods become the norm. Together, the athletes and the governing body reach millions of followers, amplifying their collective carbon handprint through shared sustainability actions and demonstrate the power of collective action in creating meaningful environmental change. Nova has now become a pro athlete. And as we know, pro athletes are very, very influential. Athletes can have millions and millions of followers. They have fans, they have people they work with, they have a lot of audience, and they have a lot of touch points to different people in different places. Therefore, it's very important for athletes to utilize those platforms for good. We know a lot of athletes are a little bit hesitant to talk about important topics. They feel like they are maybe shy, and as we talk to athletes, they kind of felt like they don't have enough knowledge, or they just don't quite know how to start. We want to encourage, we have created a tool, we have created a guide for athletes to kind of start their journey on climate communications. But I think the first step is just realizing what you can actually achieve by communicating. Because in our workshops, for example, a lot of athletes hadn't quite realized how big their impact can actually be. We also encourage athletes to make changes where you can. So we understand that athletes, there are some things you simply at this point cannot yet do the most sustainable way. But when you can, make the change and communicate. Don't let perfectionism stop you, because in athletes, everybody understands that there are some travel you need to do. There are some things you would have to do to also be the best athlete you can be. But there's also a lot where you can make changes, and it's very important to show those changes also, and be transparent about your carbon handprint and carbon footprint. We have athletes such as Antti who have been very vocal and open about their carbon footprint, and also how they also feel like they want to reduce this as much as possible, but also tell where the difficult points are. So make the changes where you can, and be open when there are obstacles in doing so, because that's also opening up the conversation on changing those obstacles and overcoming those obstacles. And then power of community. For athletes, speaking out for political change, collaborating with other athletes, creating a community with other athletes that can support you and that can do this advocating together is very important. You can also engage your governing bodies, your sponsors, anybody you feel like could be a good ally on your journey to be in growing your carbon handprint. Because what we also noticed that even though there's we maybe don't see that much athlete advocacy, there's a lot of athletes who want to do it. And those athletes were in workshops, for example, and they said, I want to do this. I know this is important. I see the changes all the time, but they just hadn't found the way. And we also told them that if you see somebody doing, the first step is supporting them. So if you see another athlete doing this, also create the culture that this is okay. Go give them a thumbs up, go like, go comment, go give your support. And that can be your first step in giving them their feedback. And now for the final part in Nova's story, Nova starts working in an international governing body. Years later, Nova concludes their professional career and continues to work with sports and championships, champion sustainability. Now working on an international sports governing body, Nova shares experiences, challenges, and tools with future athletes and sports organizations. Nova engages in sustainability approaches. Their team's successes inspire other sports, with snowsport leading the way, followed by winter sports more broadly. Ultimately, the sustainability movement the Nova spark extends worldwide. And the greatest thing is, many more followed Nova's example, and a new generation of Nova is emerging, further amplifying their success as both an athlete and as a climate ambassador. When Nova starts working in sports governing bodies, she embarks on a little bit different role. Now she's actually in a role of creating opportunities for new athletes to make this. And now her role is making the path a little bit easier for new athletes to make this work. I think that what we found that the most important role of SGBs is to lead systemic change, because they are the people who create the structures, who create the ways of working, who creates everything that happens around the sporting world. They make it possible to make a sustainability transition. How this can be done is integrating sustainability into the core. So it's not only on the shoulders of one person or one or two athletes, for example. It's in the shoulders of the whole organization. So what we noticed that there's many times there's one person who is interested or leading the sustainability, but actually to make a lasting change, it has to be the first thought in organizing anything. So it has to be the baseline what we build on. Also, you have the responsibility to make sure that actors under you, under the umbrella, have enough budget, knowledge, and resources to actually execute guidelines that you set forward. There's a lot of opportunities nowadays to get funding for these things. Use those opportunities, partner with different actors, and get the transition going. And thirdly, foster the cultural change. We've been talking about cultural change throughout the whole journey of Nova, because that's one of the biggest obstacles we also saw in all of our projects. So for SGBs, lead the way in creating and accepting a culture for sustainability work. You have TV broadcasters, for example, who you work with. Work with them. There's a lot of people you can reach through athletes, for example. Work with the athletes. IBU has been doing this in many ways, and that's a great example if you want to see concrete examples on what they're doing. But make sure that you inspire athletes, clubs, and fans to take action. You can also use our tool if you want to look at partnerships sustainability. But one tip in this point is make use of the networks you created along the way, because a lot of people also that work in SGBs have a background in sports. They have been athletes, or they have been parents of athletes, or they have been in some role in sports. So use those networks as well to get the word out there. And like we said in the beginning, we don't want to, with Nova story, to show that it's in the responsibility of one individual. With our survey, we identified that these stakeholders are the most relevant ones that have the greatest potential and influence to expand carbon handprint initiatives. Sport governing bodies were the first ones, and that's why we have highlighted that they are the ones creating the change and creating the possibility of the change. But athletes actually come second. So even though athletes are individuals, they are the ones people look up to. They are the ones they follow. They just, I think it's very common and normal to think that an athlete might be a little bit more interesting, for example, than following, for example, sporting governing bodies. So athletes have a lot more influence that they might even themselves realize. Thirdly, sponsors. Sponsors were a group that we didn't even include in our first stakeholders, but they actually, we understood that they hold a lot of power, and sponsors can be somebody who also take away possibilities to execute sustainability actions. So be mindful who you partner with. Even organizers and venues have, and then sports club, but these three are maybe the most influential, and they also kind of rose when we had those discussions and our survey. So, what can we learn from Lumi's story? Few points. Ultimately, it takes the village. Someone has to get the village excited. So even though we need the whole community with us, like Niklas says, for example, there has to be somebody who is brave enough to start the journey. But if the community is already accepting and welcoming, you don't have to be that brave. You can just start and show the example, and you have supportive people helping you along the way. There's power of leading by example. If you remember Nova's first actions, she was looking up to somebody else. So she was looking up to our idol that was biking to the slopes. And she was taking that example and then multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And in the end, in the SGB work, Nova's handprint actually consists of maybe millions of people. So even if you start by one, then you have 5 people, then you have 200 people. The higher you go, the more people you lead by the example. Collaboration is something that is needed with this work across sectors, and it's very important to ensure that the message goes from top down, but also bottom up. So it's important that the people in the SGBs, for example, have a way of communicating with the athletes, with the sports clubs, with the event organizers, so that the message goes. So if there's a difficulty executing something, for example, that the SGB wants, there needs to be some way to get the message across, and also on the other direction, so that we have relations and communications also inside the sporting community, not only externally. And yes, one important is that sustainability can become a strength to your sport club, to your organization, to you as an athlete. To align yourself with sustainable values and to be visibly and believe in your mission, that can be very beneficial in partnerships, for example. That can give you a different role, and that can amplify your who you want to show, who you want to be, and it can create a lot of new opportunities as well. I started as an athlete, and by doing sustainability work as an ambassador for Protect Our Winter Finland. Now I'm working at Protect Our Winters Finland, and all the time kind of growing it. But it started with me just saying I want to be part of this movement. There's probably other ambassadors here listening today. They wanted to be part of this movement, and I felt like it has been a great strength for me as an athlete as well, to find something to promote on top of my career. And something also educating yourself, educating others. On Monday, I was educating young athletes, young snowboarders in Vuokatti, who are from maybe 12 to 14, about of age. They were very knowledgeable. When I asked them, what do you know about climate change? What you can do? They knew all the answers. And I was like, the new generation is coming. So even if it feels like there might be some resistance at the moment, through generational impact, it's getting easier and easier. the athletes, young athletes of today, they are seeing the change. They know that their abilities to do snow sports is diminishing at the moment. They are worried about it and they're coming. So I'm very confident that we have new Novas coming, and they are very, very knowledgeable, a lot more knowledgeable. I only started my career as a climate advocate maybe at 25. So they're 12 years old and they're already starting. So good things are coming. We are on a right path, but there's a lot to work for. Thank you. Now it's time for questions. Nora, I think you have the mic there.
I have a mic, so in case somebody has questions here in the room. Other than that, first of all, I wanna thank you, Sini. The presentation was really, really, really nice and really valuable, I think, for a lot of people. But is there any questions or comments? I can bring you the mic.
Yes. Is it on? It's on. Yes. Great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My question is regarding the sponsors. They were not part of the project, but they were identified as a stakeholder, and I think that's one of the taboos within the winter sports community, that many of the sponsors of winter sports are actually fossil fuel companies that are really fueling, pun intended, fueling the climate crisis. Was there, when you spoke with athletes and others, did they identify this contradiction?
Yes. We also, from private conversations with athletes, I've been an athlete for a long time, and I've been in the field for a long time. Athletes feel these sponsorships hinder their ability to talk about sustainability. So they've talked, and they also say letting go of these sponsors, personal sponsors, for example, is very hard because there's limited ways to fund their careers. But I think that's just an obstacle we need to get over and really talk about in our, for example, in our tool, in our sponsorship tool. It's very relevant that we want to guide people not to take these sponsorships. Because, for example, right now we are hosting, FIS is hosting World Championships in Lillehammer and they're in Trondheim, and they have a fossil fuel sponsorship, and they also have now, they are facing activists that want to hide those sponsorships, otherwise they will have a strike. And by not taking those sponsorships, you also avoid this kind of advocacy and this kind of protesting. So I think at this point, people are not accepting that anymore. I think a lot of people are not accepting it inside the community, but they just can't say it. But also, I think there's a growing scrutiny from the public to say that this is not okay anymore. And you can see it if you look at comments. You can see in many ways that people are starting to question how can snow sports have these sponsors, or how can they act so unsustainably and still claim that they love this sport. So I think the moment is growing that organizations and individuals really have to think hard if they want to do these sponsorships. And I think that's a good thing.
Any more questions? Is there any questions online? No questions online. We will continue the talks. Heidi, you want to take over?
And thank you again to Sini and also to Jonne for really a great presentation. And we will really now go exploring about the details of, for example, about those barriers and possibilities in our panel discussion starting at 2:30. So we will have a 15-minute break at this time, and then we will continue with a great panel discussion exploring all that carbon handprint work and the possibilities and barriers and everything. So welcome online again on 2:30. Thank you.
And if you want to take our quiz on the meantime,
yes, take a
be
quiz.
welcome.
And Sini will join also in the panel discussion,
Yes.
so you can ask more questions or give comments to her if something comes into your mind during the break. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See you in 15 minutes.
niin että älkääkä hämmästykö siellä. Mä testaan yhtä juttua täällä, että miten mä saan näkymään myös tonne meidän screenille sillä, ettei se lähde monistuun.
Hi all.
Okay, thank you.
No worries, seems like everything's working now in the auditorium.
Hello, Jonas, Rika, Sara. Hello from Rovaniemi. We're still waiting from Riikka Juntunen to join us. She is on her way, so we will start soon. Couple of minutes. Hello, welcome. Welcome back to this webinar and seminar of Project SNOWSCAPE. Just first comment, some of our panelists online, can you say something so that we can make sure that we can hear you?
Can you hear us?
Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Hello there.
Thank you. As we're seeing, Terhi is still sort of, it looks like it's still not connecting, but at least we can hear Jonas, Riikka, and Sara. All right. Maybe I'll just, go ahead and start, and we'll look how Terhi will be joining us soon. Welcome back to our webinar and seminar around Project SNOWSCAPE. And welcome to all of those who are now just joining this webinar. My name is Heidi Kalmari. I'm from Protect Our Winters Finland. I'm the chair of the board. And just a couple of words again, what is Protect Our Winters, in case there's someone who doesn't know our organization yet. So Protect Our Winters is an international climate organization and dedicated of winter enthusiasts and outdoor adventures. Here in Finland, in fact, we are proud to be approaching 10 years of activity next year. Our mission in Protect Our Winters is to engage the winter sports and outdoor communities in meaningful climate action. So organize impactful campaigns and events and influence decision makers as well as companies both nationally and internationally. And Project SNOWSCAPE, which is the main theme of today, is an EU co-funded project of ours that is now coming to an end, and it has been all about exploring the handprint, the carbon handprint of winter sports and the possibilities within it. Now we have heard very inspiring and meaningful presentations in the first half of this webinar, but now we are going to have a big discussion around the carbon handprint and all, also joining in all the participants. Well, not all of the participants that has been included in this project, but in some way, I think, everyone in this panel has been involved in this one. So I'm really excited of welcoming our panelists for today, and we will have around 45 minutes of discussion, so we will have plenty of time on giving comments and round, and also anytime if there are any sort of comments or questions online, please feel free to add them in the chat, and we will find a way to pick them in the discussion. But in the first half, we went through this Nova's story. Nova was a kind of an example of one individual enthusiastic in snow sports, and we were kind of following her path or their path along the way of becoming a climate advocate among the winter sports. And we could see that it was a little bit of glimpses, like also Sini said, that it might have been some of the parts could have been like from her story, and we are learning that there are recognizable points in her story to recognize what could be the handprint work. But we want to know how the first comments of like this vision that was actually the vision kind of described for the carbon handprint work, and we are now looking for some first comments from our panelists. So let's start first. Riikka Rakic, you're the head of strategy, sustainability and governance at the International Biathlon Union, IBU. and you lead sustainability efforts with one of the most prominent snow sports federations, and you're driving such strategic actions for a greener future in the sport. Riikka, how did you find this vision and the kind of Nova story? How did it sound to you coming from the heart of snow sports movement?
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you for the introduction. And thanks for the invitation to be here today at this concluding seminar for the project, which I have followed since the beginning. And yeah, I thought that the story, I wish we had more Novas in our sport. I think the story, I think we all that are in the movement and are speaking for the change and trying to impact change in others, wish there would be more of us. And I guess I feel that what we need is more Novas so that we get more momentum and almost like a snowball effect for our own movement. Because the more Novas there are, the more of us are speaking the same language. Today we are not preaching to the converted, we're really evangelists. We're trying to get everyone on the same journey that we are. And from the snow sports itself inside, we are more now than we were 5 years ago when I started this job, but we still can use more help.
Thank you, Riikka. And I really enjoy that snowball effect. That's definitely what we are now using more and more. It really sort of fits in this. Jonas Schneider, you're the executive director at Protect Our Winters Europe, and you work at the forefront of climate advocacy, bringing together athletes, organizations, and policymakers to inspire climate action across Europe in the snow sports as well as the outdoor sports community. How you are now kind of how you've learned the Nova story. Does this kind of vision resonate with you from the perspective on an international climate organization?
Thanks. I mean, first of all, thanks so much for the invitation. Very nice seeing so many friendly faces here online. It is a very good question because indeed it is, I think we always face a similar situation, which is on one side, we do have the passion for winter, the passion for our sport. We share values, so we want to do our sport in a way that aligns with our values. But then, of course, we are confronted with reality. And there are so many hurdles in reality. It can be everyday obstacles that make our task, our goal to reach more difficult. There can be more complex situations we are facing, the political context we are living in right now. But as a conclusion, and I really like this word of snowball effect. First of all, the more we see examples, the easier it is to proceed. If we see someone that does something, this is a way for us to see there is a way, there is a path. We can actually reach the goal we are set to attain. And by seeing others doing something, it is also, we feel less alone. We feel that this is not just David against Goliath, but maybe there is a couple of Davids against one big Goliath. And we seek support, we seek help, we seek inspiration by seeing others doing the same thing. And I think this is the work we try to do here at Protect Our Winters. We try to inspire athletes, we try to inspire scientists, we try to inspire creatives, and basically all the winter sport outdoor lovers to turn passion into purpose. And our job is to lead the way, to showcase what are the tools, and to try to bring these people together to create a movement which is hopefully as powerful and impactful as possible.
Thank you so much, Jonas. And actually, I think you now mentioned more of the shareholders or stakeholders that could be involved in this snowball effect. We've mentioned like sports clubs and everything. We've been discovering the snow sports sort of community, but now you mentioned scientists as well as the creatives. So of course, the snowball effect can, be just, keep on expanding when we're looking at at all that kind of new stakeholders involved. Sinipu, now give a comment round for you. You are a two-time Paralympian and project manager for this SNOWSCAPE project, and as you've already told us, you've combined your athletic experience with your expertise in sustainability to lead initiatives that connect snow sports with impactful climate solutions, and this carbon handprint project is truly one great example of that. So how do you now feel to sort of this vision? Well, the Nova story was some sort of a vision now all together. So how do you perceive this?
Well, of course, for me, being one of the writers of the story, I wanted to create a path for an athlete that has been easier than my own. In advocating for climate, I feel like in my sports, for example, there is still a lot of resistance. And with Nova, I kind of wanted to also envision how things could be a lot easier. And I feel like we really have an opportunity to make it so. And we also have the motives, and we have athletes who have the motive. During this project, we've had a lot of talks with young athletes, for example, and they are very, very motivated to learn more about climate and also learn how to take it effect, because the truth is we might still be able to ski, but we will be skiing in tunnels and first nose tracks. And those are not the kind of environments that necessarily create a pull for the sport. And you really need the pull to become an athlete, to become a pro athlete. And if we want to have those pro athletes in 20 years and in 30 years, we really need to make sure that they have more, and we have more to offer than the 1 kilometer first snow track. Because if that would have been my environment starting my career as a skier, I did my first competition at 4 years old, I don't think I would be a Paralympian today. So I think there's a lot we want to do, and we have a lot of aspiring athletes coming to the journey, but we also, as adults and people working on the field, need to make sure that we remove those obstacles there might still be.
Thank you. A very powerful thought. And of course, now we can really stop on that thought that the environment has really changed among like the small new skiers or winter sports beginners. Then Riikka Juntunen, you are the CEO of Sport Institute Foundation, and you have an extensive experience in advancing sport education and development. With this experience in the sports world, how do you see the industry heading toward this vision of what was represented by Nova's story at the moment?
Oh, thanks for the question, and thanks for asking to join the panel. It's really an honor to be here. I have an experience in parasports for more than 25 years in different roles, and I've seen the change. And one change is that the governing board. Now I want to take what the International Governing Board can do. One change is that IPC, the International Paralympic Committee, decided to make their strategy loud, and they stated that change starts with sports. It didn't say we need medals or we are here too. It really stated that we want to make change, and if you want to make change, please join us. What they mean by change is inclusion in our societies and accessibility. They didn't say climate change, but they took those two things what are really important for people with disabilities in the society. They didn't speak anything about podiums or gold medals or Paralympic Games, but the change in the society. So when they make a sponsorship, they only make an agreement with the company that they are based in the same values what they have. So with this example, I want to state that it's not it's fantastic that we have IBU example, but it's not enough. All the snow sports federation, the global ones, they need to be together in this thing if we want to have snow in the future, and they need to make a statement about that. And then they really because in the sponsorship world, we have to make a connect so we have to have the same goals, and also in the whether we had a question earlier here today about not only about the car manufacturing, but manufacturing industry is one of the is supporting sports in different sports, but also winter sports. They want to make profit, but they also want to find a solution, not only to make the electric car, but to make, for instance, the hydrogen cars. So that's one, I think, one solution that we might have in the future. So they have a competition too. So I think the short is to say is that if we want to make a change in sponsorship, we as a sport, we need to make very clear what we are driving to, and then the companies they will also kind of find us and find the same values. Not only highlight the how fantastic sport is, because that's we know it and how many people watch it, but why we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Riikka. And let's get more into that, how to get everyone on board later on with this discussion. Then we have Saara Böök online. Saara from Protect Our Winters Finland, and Saara is also the UN Youth Climate Delegate. So, and you're representing kind of the youth point of view in this discussion. So, as a young leader advocating for climate action, how do you think young people and communication efforts can really play a role in making this Nova's vision reality?
Hi on my behalf as well. Really good question. Maybe firstly, I want to highlight that it's not only the youth that we need to have in the process of making this vision reality. We need the elderly, we need the adults, we need the youth, and so on. And I think what is really clear is that the youth is already more concerned about the climate crisis and taking the issue way more seriously than the other age groups when compared. And I think we have already seen this during this project as well, during the Snowscape, when we visited the schools and had super fruitful discussions with the younger athletes involved within the snow sports. For example, there's so many talented and bright young athletes who are ready to take action. And I think we, like as youth, we need to demand for the opportunity to have the future, for sure, to make our voices heard. But in addition to that, I think we also need everyone else's ears open and someone to actually listen and to act on that demand, pretty much. And I think when Sini said earlier that the next generation is coming, I want to add on that a lot of us are already here. Like the next generation is not only coming, but we are already here partly. And the future of us is already designed and shaped by the policies and the decisions that are made today. And we can't really wait for the next 30 years for the next generation to take over and clean up the mess. And as in the story of Nova, I think we need to include the youth in the discussions and decision making. We need to show that our voices, I'm including myself for the voices of youth, obviously, but we need to make their voice and efforts seen as that they matter, and by taking the action altogether today. And as Jonas was referring earlier to the snowball effect of action, I think that one of the best strategies for inspiring action among the next generation is for sure to get the others leading the way by example. Because I simply believe that the youth is already ready to act. Like we're already waiting for something to happen, and we need to show that life in the limits of a planet is actually something that is way better and not something that we need to sacrifice everything for. And the youth is not definitely paralyzed by the consequences of the upcoming crisis, but actually the inaction that is present in our society right now.
Thank you, Sara, and very important point over there is to change the narrative to be something that all these actions actually can improve life and make a better way of living, not being the sacrifice side. Then I want to welcome last but not least, Terhi Liintola. You're the project manager at the Finnish Department of Education and Erasmus Plus sports expert in Finland. You work to promote and support international collaboration through the Erasmus Plus program. Terhi, what role do you think education plays in enabling a vision like Nova's?
Thank you for the invitation. Could you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Hey, first, thank you for inviting me, and I have to congratulate Sini, Nora, and others involved, and those who've been contributing to your, amazing project, this pilot project financed by the Parliament. I was happy that I was able to follow the presentation given by Jonne, Niklas, and Sini, and saw your remarkable. I loved your visuals you had. What have you done during your project cycle? It was very effective and visible. And to this pedagogical approach of this Nova's story. I mean, so many things have been already said by the previous panelists that I don't really even know what to add. But as we know, this education and training are the ways how we could influence on people and how we could change attitudes and ways of acting or being. And I don't know. I just heard it. I didn't have any time to, unfortunately, to read it through before. So I was just following Sini's presentation, and I'm still sort of very overwhelmed of the projects. I mean, this kind of EU funding and how much things you have already done and what kind of results you have gained during your project.
Thank you, Terhi.
To add about this
Do you
discussion,
still
I'm
more?
now sitting in Helsinki, and it's rainy and it's +4. And if you would like to do snow sports, it's just artificial snow. You could do that, unfortunately. So really big things we have to do all together globally in order to do something or change things.
Thank you, Terhi, and I agree. Coming from Helsinki on a night train, and it was really the different atmosphere in there. So luckily here in Rovaniemi, actually, there is snow, and we're very fortunate to have that. But it should be more actually at this time of the year, in the end of January. So we are witnessing now, of course, a different winter already this year. But yeah, thank you, Terhi, and thanks for the thank yous for our team. And I do agree, same that amazing job has been done. I want to go now. Of course, now that we've been going around, all the possibilities of things that we need to do. But since the situation is that, like we discussed with Niklas already in the beginning, that the full potential is not in use already. So there must be some barriers still so much in front of us not to be in that Nova story yet fully. So let's go through a little bit of those. And first challenge I think is limited knowledge and awareness still. Although we have been like overwhelmed with the information about climate change, it's still not kind of reaching, maybe not on an emotional level or in another level all people, because not everyone is acting already. So just couple of comments now around this. How can we sort of bridge the gap of this knowledge and awareness among different stakeholders, and really sort of ensure that all both the sports community as well as the decision makers understand the importance and practicalities of this kind of carbon handprint thinking. So first question to Saara: how do you see now the youth? That's kind of, we already said, and you said that there are people, young people acting already, are being really aware, but I think there needs to be more awareness, don't you think, and how to do that?
Yeah, sure. I think when it comes to the climate communications, like the research specifically shows that there isn't really like a one golden strategy to get the message through. But you really need to know who you're talking to, and I think we're like in a tip of a mountain right now. With the snow sports, like we know that we're talking to the snow sports people. We know what matters to them. We know what they need to hear and what they want to hear about the topic. Yeah, so obviously it's about the surroundings, it's about the jobs or sports or well-being, and the future of the sports especially. So that's why I think it's super, super relevant to have the advocates, the people who are actually talking about these matters within the community. We have really, really great examples in POW as well about the athletes being advocates for climate and talking about these issues. They have a really, really powerful voice when it comes to the sports people. They are role models for so many people. They're role models, especially for the young people, the youth. It's been super nice to see every time when we go to the school and there might be an athlete with us. They're super intrigued to hear like what kind of change are they making and how they're advocating for these things. So I think there is a really powerful message to be passed on from the athletes' point of view. Like, why shouldn't they be the voices for the change as well when they're talking about the sports that matters so greatly for them? Secondly, I think the numbers are not doing enough anymore. I think we had a really good discussion or like a talk in the beginning of the seminar by Niklas when he was talking about the numbers, that we really need to get through the facts as well, because they're really based on the numbers, but it's not something really that gets people into action. Like numbers can be super distant and super abstract to understand in that way. And we are definitely not that rational species as we kind of want to be. So everything connects into the emotion. And I like when Jonna said that we're working through the passion that we have for the winter sports. I think that really sums everything up really well. It needs to be something that speaks to the specific stakeholder on an emotional level, especially connected to the positive emotions, in my opinion. Like you, Heidi, said that we are getting pretty tired about hearing the crisis like going on. We have like just a infinite pool of crises going on, and we can't take all the information in. So we need something to lift up our minds up. And I think snow sports in general can be the joy that sparks our passion into action. And I also think that it tackles pretty much the challenge that climate crisis being seen as something very abstract or distant. Like snow sports is really part of our culture, and we really it's something that's happening in our everyday life pretty much when it comes to the winter. And I think this is what we've been doing in this project so much, and in POW in general, connecting the massive threats we face to something super simple and joyful as winters are. Lastly, just one final note on the communication side is, I think, like final revelation for me at least in the climate communication is that sometimes it's way more effective to talk about climate solutions without even talking about the climate at all. And only talking about the climate crisis can be somewhat of a cursing word for some. Like when they hear it, they're turned around and they're not listening to you anymore. So we need to think about those paths that we can, or links that we can talk about the solutions in other topics. Is it health, or is it security? Is it finance? Or something bigger, or something that people really feel connected to through different kind of topics. And I believe that's really one of the points that we can make with the climate communications.
Thank you, Sara, and that's a really good point. And I also think it was found in Nova's story that, for example, when they were in the sports clubs, like when they were riding the bike to the practices or the hills, it was also a good warm up. So it was good for the health. So we kind of, of course, want to emphasize all of the sides of these things that we do. So there are many points of, motivating us doing also in a climate friendly way. Jonas, you as well as I know that climate organizations, one of the things that we really are doing all the time and we want to do is to raise awareness, and we do a lot of campaigns. We've done those and we are still doing that, and that's one of the ways we work. But how do you see the campaigns at the moment, or in general, are they effective? Are they still having the power that they actually do raise awareness?
That's a fantastic question, and of course a very, I'd say, a very complex one. Starting, let's say, from a bit further away, at POW, I would say, if I look back, for example, at 2024, it does feel a bit like a strange year, because on one side, I used the word David against Goliath before. I'm going to use it again. I don't know why. Last year, we celebrated probably one of our most unexpected victories ever. In March 2023, 500 athletes signed a petition or an open letter asking FIS to become more sustainable. Let's not delve into too many details right now, but basically, it was asked the International Ski Federation to be at the forefront for climate protection as an organization or a federation that lives and benefits from winter sport. And at that time, if I may say so, probably FIS was pretty far away from being the example that these 500 athletes were expecting FIS to become. 1.5 years later, after some very intensive campaigning, it was a great joy for all the POW community and all the athletes that signed this, and the over 37,000 people from our community that signed the open petition, to see that actually FIS came up with an impact program and its first ever solid carbon footprint assessment. And this was huge for us because it included 3 of the 4 points that we were campaigning for. And this campaign would say that we would come out with a success rate of 75% of our asks. So that felt very good. And it shows that sometimes NGOs, if we play well our cards, if we align with like-minded organizations, athletes, other stakeholders, if we use the media in the adequate way, we can actually celebrate wins. And that's felt very, very good. Of course, what does a win like this mean in a context such as, for example, what is happening right now in the US with, I don't need to go into details again, with the US stepping out of the Paris Agreement? It does feel a bit strange. But I would say at the end, we all fight the battles we are capable to fight. We all have to learn that sometimes you make big steps, sometimes you make smaller steps, but the importance is to progress. And here at POW, what we try is through our philosophy of action over apathy, and I think Sara summed it up very well, we try to use positive emotions. We try to go away from this doom and gloom. We try to not be paralyzed by everything that is happening, and we just try to progress. We try to use the things we have at hand. We try to build alliances with like-minded people. We try to push our voice beyond our traditional reach. So again, we use people that are capable to amplify our voice. We team up with progressive brands, progressive companies. We ask athletes, we ask creatives to make sure that whatever we do goes beyond or goes as far as possible. And this is the way we do campaigns. We talked about FIS. You surely have all been part of the EU election campaign last year. This year, we have a very big campaign in the pipeline again. It's the International Year of Glacier Preservation. And again, we have created a documentary. We use, I would say, different tools to make people aware of what is happening up there. And this is, I think, our best chance to make sure that what we do resonates with our community and that the campaigns we do are as successful as possible.
Thank you, Jonas. And I think the essence again in this, like in a very successful campaign, it's when it reaches the kind of the snowball effect again, you know, getting more and more stakeholders to be involved in here. The other barrier or challenge in the sort of like before not going into a really sort of full potential like carbon handprint thinking and operating is lack of resources, whether it's financial, human or technical. So how can sports organizations overcome this? What kind of solutions or funding opportunities should we focus on to support sustainability efforts? Riikka Juntunen, in your experience, how do you see that? How can organizations efficiently allocate resources into carbon handprint work?
Thank you. I think one solution is, like Terhi said earlier, education and knowledge. This is definitely one that we need to do more with athletes. We say that athletes they can use their voice, and it's an athlete's choice whether they use it or not. But we educate athletes for anti-doping. We educate athletes for different ethical questions. Why not, other things that are also important in our society? So the federations, they have a big chance to work with the athletes, to help the athletes to race and to say what they want to say. I'm impressed with what Jonas said about the 500 athletes, but I think there are more skiers than 500 and more skiers who want to say something. So how to be able to tell. So the more you know about it, the easier it is to speak about it. And I think here the thing is that this should not be something special. It should be something normal, nothing special. But still, at the moment, we are in a place that all the athletes who speak about climate change, they will have a label, and they will be different than the others, and we should change that to the opposite. So the athlete who speaks about climate change is just an athlete with the message that most of the people in the society also want to hear. So, but the change doesn't. It won't change. The education doesn't start if we don't have someone who starts. So I think here also I throw the ball or the snowball to POV to start to educate also to more athletes and to work together with the sport federations to educate more athletes. It's not only your job or our job. It's a shared job that should be done.
Definitely. We're happy to do our share of that and are hoping the snowball effect to continue. Terhi Lintola, EU funding mechanism and educational initiatives often provide great opportunities also for tackling resource gaps. What kind of funding programs or partnerships do you think could be leveraged to advance carbon handprint actions in sports?
Yeah, thank you. There are many opportunities. There are very big programs as Horizon, where is a specific action, is it called climate, energy and mobility, and life program that are there are very big money. But for the sport organizations, it might be interested to join some kind of the consortium and be a partner and to contribute that way. But more accessible is, of course, EU funding such as Erasmus that has sustainability one of the priorities, and the nice news are, especially in Finland, when the government is cutting finances from the sport organizations, that the funding on EU level is increasing. Only in Finland we are distributing this year over 60 million for Erasmus. And on European level, this Erasmus plus sports, the funding is almost 70 million, and it's increasing every year. And
Wow, great
Erasmus,
numbers.
it's already funds project that promotes sustainability because it is one of the priorities, green skills and environmental awareness. And I think it's very important that sport organizations, it was mentioned beforehand that this kind of cooperation, that sport government bodies are playing very important role in making the change, and athletes and sponsors, sport clubs. But it's very important also to have like cross-sectoral partnerships together with environmental organizations, industries, educational bodies. And in Erasmus Plus, there have been already financed many projects that are integrating sustainability into the coaching, athlete development, and community engagement, for example. And also the program is sort of it's a mobility program as well, but for the green travel, you are getting extra funding if you're not flying. So it's really you are getting also results of acting, and also
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely great opportunities, I think, and
you really also
what great news to hear that this kind of funding is actually increasing at the times of this. And of course, it's a great way now to also share this
design
information through this webinar.
for thinking of
Couple of other sort of still challenges and barriers to go through. Riikka Rakic, one of the things is that there is not sufficient support from governing bodies, or maybe kind of lack of cooperation in general. So how can we foster stronger leadership and cooperation across the sports ecosystems, and what kind of experiences have you had, and what kind of thoughts do you have on this, speaking on behalf of the International Biathlon Union?
Yes, thank you. I hope you can hear me. I think the connection is working. I'm at the IPC, well, previously IPC, now IPU Parabiathlon event. So I'm in Italy. I was worried about my connection, but thank you for the question. And I've heard a lot of really remarkable comments, and I don't want to repeat those, but I also need to say that I don't feel that we are lacking commitment and support. I think the sports movement has taken a lot more proactive role in this. If not every sports federation is at the same point, then I can fight only my own different fights here, and that's what I'm being focused on. I think what we have really done a little differently maybe is we realize that we are small. Biathlon is a very small sport, in terms of participation, but we are lucky to have a platform. Germany is our most or the largest market with the largest number of fans. So it gives us a great platform. We're in the biggest country in Europe, and we try to use that. We also have reached out to all our partners, stakeholders. So starting from our sponsor partners, including other federations, we are actually participating in 3 different Erasmus projects at the moment for sustainability alone, and another 2 for gender equality and athlete dual career. So there are things that I think as a sports federation you can do, but I don't see any reason to wait for the others to get to this point. I don't think we have any time to waste. Where I see the biggest challenge, and I think it may be in snow sports in particular, that it's a very conservative, traditional sport with perhaps rather, let's say, conservative leadership. And as long as we don't get the leadership on board, I've been lucky in the IBU that we have had a recent leadership change, and I think that opened the door for us to also be very quick in our progress and taking all these steps across basically the whole horizon of our activities. But it's not the case in all the sub-actors that we also need to get on board. I think the athlete engagement is the greatest example because we have offered athlete training. We know that athletes don't feel comfortable talking about climate in our sport, so we try to invite them to different training opportunities, but not many people are showing up. And I think it's because the coaches are not supporting their participation, because they are requiring transport often to, even if we go to the venue where they're competing, they might not be staying. The venue might be 20 kilometers away from where their hotel is. So they are dependent on support from different other actors on the kind of puzzle that we have to get on board with this fight. We've also reached out to our industry partners, because I think they play a key role. We don't own the athlete. The National Federation owns them, but also the brands have a direct connection with the athlete. Typically, there's a contract between the athlete who's skiing on their skis or using their poles. So there is a lever there that should be used. So I think we all need to come together and try to leverage these connection points. And then when we all speak the same messages and the athletes see that this is actually supported, then it's easier for them to actually take the stance that they need to take for climate. But so it's easy to get frustrated, especially like Jonas mentioned, with what's happening in the world and over the bond in particular. But I think we need to just keep at it. And I hope that most of the federations in international sport will have leadership soon enough that actually see the issues that we're facing. Until that time, we need to just do and try to change the little things like we can in our own doing. But I do recommend everyone, every time I get the chance, to use the funding from Erasmus, because typically resources is given as the excuse for not to do something. Erasmus has certainly provided us with a good budget to do things, and that definitely helps.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Riikka, and very powerful comments from you. I want to now ask from Sini now, as you are also an athlete, and this is, this needs a dialogue between all the stakeholders to the bigger audience, but then also between. So one of the powers is that athletes, take a stronger action into sort of, getting the support from the governing bodies and changing the attitudes of the leadership, if they might be, like, for example, conservative still thinkers. So what kind of role do you see for athletes as kind of like within the system to do to do the change?
Well, I definitely agree with what Riikka said, that there's a very conservative culture still, especially what I faced in sports leadership. And it's a shame that you need to change the leadership to change the attitudes. So I think if we can increase communication, and, like we've said many times, foster a culture of listening and being open to changes, I think that can be a good starting point, and also opening up communications from different levels. And also maybe as a final stretch, there are no competitive sports without athletes. And we've seen a lot of very good examples from the workers' unions, for example, using their strength, doing athlete strike, for example, one day. That might be a little bit extreme, but there are ways that athletes can, in a sort of way, unionize and use their collective power and say, for example, in one case, that we won't race unless this changes. And we have that power because ultimately all of the organizations built around sports are for the athletes and to create possibilities from the grassroots level, from kids to being clubs to the pro level to be professionals. The systems are built for the athletes to do their best as athletes, but also as humans, I think. And sports has a lot of potential to show and create a better world. And I think for us athletes, we just need to realize our potential, which has been the project's aim and goal, but also kind of get more athletes to understand this and understand that we can do a lot of changes together.
Yeah, one of the most important points, not to be alone and feel supported, to be encouraged. Yes, Riikka, please go ahead.
I just want to, what Sini says is fantastic, but I feel sorry for the sport if we leave this only for the athletes. This is about leadership. And if the leaders in sport are so not leaders, they should not be there. So if you want to be a leader, be a leader. And this is about leading. And if the leaders say that we cannot do it and we want the athletes to do it, I think they are not in the right place.
Thank you, Riikka. We have had a great discussion, and we are now running our time to the end. Maybe just one check if there are any comments or questions online to be tackled or brought up to this discussion before the short and final question for everyone. And let's keep them short, just to kind of give you a warning already. So I will ask you a short answer from everyone. No questions or comments from online. Okay, so what great inspiration, what powerful speeches from everyone. But now to the action. So I want to hear what will be the next sort of concrete step that you or your organization will do next to push the snowball effect into our even higher speed. So let's start from Jonas.
Thank you very much. I have to be very short. That's going to be difficult.
Yes.
This year, 2025, UNESCO and World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations are teaming up to make 2025 the International Year of Glacier Preservation. This is a fantastic opportunity for all of us at Protect Our Winters, because the glaciers are in a certain way, I would say, a testament of what is happening. Glaciers are melting, and they are melting, of course, due to climate change. And this has very concrete consequences downstream. It affects water, clear water. It affects food, agriculture, of course, but it goes even as far as affecting energy security. And this is a very interesting topic, because the three topics I just mentioned aren't the typical topics of an NGO. These are the topics that even more conservative and traditional politicians will actually show interest. Nobody can be against clean water, nobody can be against enough food, and nobody can be against energy security. So this provides us with a fantastic opportunity to put climate action top of the list, to use this as a perfect bridge into advocacy, and engage with politicians of all the political spectrum, as we have the perfect excuse of an International Year of Glacier Preservation, 3 big organizations worldwide that are communicating on this. We have a very good documentary on this topic. So a lot of our work this year, and especially in the field of awareness raising to our community, as well as advocacy and engaging with policymakers, is going to be around this glacier preservation, which will be, I would say, a very tactical approach to keep climate action on top of the list.
Yay. Thank you, Jonas. Sounds big and inspiring. Let's all join that. Then Saara.
Well,
can you keep it shorter?
Yeah, I try to keep it shorter. Maybe on a general level, I think what we need is a community effort. And I think that's what we're doing. at POW as well. We're gathering the voices of the ones who see the need for the change, and we need to be louder together. So I think that's the final words for me.
Yes, let's be louder. So what about Riikka online?
Riikka online. So for my biggest challenge or commitment for myself has been that there is sustainability for our event organizers is no longer an option. It's a mandatory commitment, and it's not something that will be done the week before. It needs to be a planned effort. So we have a plan that we've started with our biggest events, and we will now definitely have a multi-year plan for each of them to progress over time, but definitely with clear checkpoints and KPIs.
Great, thank you so much. Terhi online, can you, well now we're not maybe seeing, maybe there's some she's offline. All right, so I'll take Sini here.
Okay, thank you. And thank you everyone for your good examples here. I think for us now that SNOWSCAPE project, like the first part is ending, we have already have some funding to continue with athletes. So we have secured funding to create a little bit more athlete advocacy courses and test those out. So I think my next effort professionally is to go and talk to the athletes, hear more about them, learn more. But I think everything I've also learned during this project and in my work in Protect Our Winters, I need to put also in my own advocacy, because I think that's something that has been lacking for the last couple of years. So maybe also find my own voice and strength again, not only as a professional in climate, but also as an athlete and as a person, an individual that can show, because now I've been preaching this whole day and the last 18 months that everybody has a voice and has an impact, but maybe I should also pick up my boots and start doing that.
We love your voice. We want to hear more about it, more of it. And then Riikka.
Yeah, thank you. I work in a foundation that supports sports for more than 500,000, €500,000 a year. So money is good if you use it in the right way. And I think giving money to sport, it's fantastic. But I think I'll challenge more the clubs and the foundation, the sport federations that get the money, that think also about the climate change and the responsibility that we have here. So I will challenge a bit more the people who get the money.
Oh yeah, sounds great. Now it's already our time is up for today. A big thank you for everyone for this really inspiring afternoon. We've learned so much. But just to kind of mention, this is just only the beginning for this carbon handprint work. So let's all be courageous, brave, active, so that we can, now push the snowball effect into a real action, and let's make a greater impact in our community. Thank you everyone for this afternoon. Thank you.